know how does it feel to be so controversial and and brave. I think this book should have been shorter if all the men in this book went to therapy. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. Happy red season. I'm celebrating. And my name is Samah, and today I'm gonna be sharing some of the unpopular opinion that you have sent me. I had asked earlier on my Instagram story to send me your unpopular opinion about books, about reading in general, and you didn't disappoint. Oh my god, I lost the word disappointed. Some of them touched a nerve, some of them were like, okay, I shared the same opinion, and I have them written on the old-fashioned way on my laptop, and I'm gonna be going right now. But before we start, I want to just say that I respect your opinions. I understand where this came from. I mean, everyone has their favorite books and they don't like said books, and that's totally fine. I'm not judging here, I'm just commenting on your opinion about the books. And if you didn't like this series that I like them, it's okay. I'm not judging you. I may came out harsh, but at the end of the day, I'm totally respecting your opinion. So please don't come at me. I'm sensitive, and don't call me out in the comments. We're starting off light. And this one says, I hated Peter Pan. I can't remember actually Peter Pan. I know the plot. I know the movie that was starring Tom Hanks, I think. And I know it was adapted into animated series that we watched when we were kids, and that's it. I know the plot. I never read them, and this I can see where this came from, because after watching this fun animated series and reading and watching the movie also make the lighten the hard parts of the book, like the description, the writing, everything. So when you read some books like Peter Pan or Caroline or the old classics, it sounds dense compared to the fun adaptation. So I can totally understand where this came from. I didn't enjoy Dracula, so I DNF'd it. Smiley face. Dracula is my favorite horror, and there's something about Dracula that stands out for me, because there's no gore, there's no blood, there's no shock effects that you see in horror / thriller books, because this one is into the gothic classic category, and second of all, it was written for the suspense. Like, you don't see Dracula, you don't see him doing his bits, but you're like always afraid, and it is a big ass book. I can see where this came from. It is very dense. I almost DNF'd it actually, but for me, I finished it because I had watched previously the overly sarcastic production video about it, and it sounded so much fun, and she said that it is really dense. It is a very dense book, and I went into it with this idea knowing that this is gonna be dense, this is gonna be hard to follow, but I'm gonna keep going, and it became one of my favorite classics. So let's move on, because this is gonna turn out into me fangirling about Dracula. I think The Alchemist is a scum, nothing more. It is so hyped and so marketed as something it is not. I believe we're talking about The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I used to read Paulo Coelho like super early on my reading journal when I was, I think, 18, 19. It was the hip. It was like the most popular books you can find here in Morocco. I have read a lot of his books, but I didn't read The Alchemist. I met a lot of people who read The Alchemist, only The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho and nothing else. And I can see that Paulo Coelho, one of the authors that are super marketed, maybe because the language is easier because it's translated, or because I don't know. Personally, I don't see why the hype, there's a lot of hype around Paulo Coelho, because it appeals to some of the people who hold the publishing industry. I don't know how to explain it, but I can see why it is so hugely marketed. And I don't know, I haven't read The Alchemist, so I'm totally clueless about the book, but I can see what you mean, because Paulo Coelho, as I said, is very marketed, and it's one of the most authors you can find here in Morocco. Everywhere it's Paulo Coelho, it's Elif Shafak. I'm not saying that marketed authors are bad. I mean, Elif Shafak has like some really good books, and Paulo Coelho has some really great books. I've read 11 Minutes. I also read The Witch of Portobello, I think, and it was fun. It was fun to read. He discussed a lot of the social constructs in our society, and he talks about the differences. And keep in mind, this is translated, so whatever we read, it's lightened to appease to our taste. Physical copies are overrated and consumerist culture. As long as you're reading, it doesn't matter, ebook or a book. I agree with the last bit, with the half bit of your opinion. I mean, it doesn't matter how you read, either it's a physical book, an ebook, audiobook, I don't care, as long as you are reading. That's the most important thing. Like, we get so lost into social media and this bookstagram and booktube, seeing people talking about books and holding physical copies, but we forget that the main interest and the main point is that you are reading. It doesn't matter what format you are using, but the most important that you have to read. So I understand that, and there's a lot of people who are super gatekeeping about reading in general. But like, if you don't have a huge collection of books, or you don't have the physical copy of the books, you are not a reader. And especially if you are using the audiobooks, because a lot of people don't consider them to be books, and I totally disagree. Because for me, like personally, I don't use audiobooks because I get distracted a lot. If I have to listen to an audiobook, I have to be either working or doing chores or just like helping around the house. But if I am just like chilling and doing nothing, I cannot concentrate on an audiobook. And a lot of the audiobooks don't really attract me unless we have like some really good narrators. For example, I have listened to the Game of Thrones audiobook, the first one in the Song of Ice and Fire. It was fantastic. I also listened to the audiobook for Daisy Jones and the Six. Phenomenal. So that's one thing. The other thing is that physical copies are overrated. I mean, for someone, I mean, I'm talking from a privileged point, because before, when I was still a student, I couldn't afford a lot of the books that I was reading, so I was always referring to the university library, or borrowing books, or just like exchanging books with my friends. I didn't have a huge collection till I had a full-time job and I could afford to buy books. And we kind of get in like so immersed into it that we don't see outside for people who can't actually afford books, who just like doesn't want to have a huge collection of books. Because I know a lot of people who read a book and don't get emotionally attached to it, and they just like throw it away or give it to someone else. I can't do that. I mean, I can't, because I get emotionally attracted to anything. I have receipts from back 2017-16 that I still keep in my bags, because from an environment point of view, books are really bad to the environment, because they take so much to make. Like, it's a waste of water, it's a waste of paper. But I mean, if your own books are for you and you're keeping them as a personal collection to be gifted later on or saved to the next generation. I mean, for my books, I can totally see myself in the future like giving them to family, and like I want to be remembered as this fun aunt who had a huge collection of books, and all her like nephews and nieces came and she gave them the books. And yeah, it's also a matter of what you prefer to do. Like, if you want to buy books, that's fine, but if you want to buy books just because you see a lot of people buying books, you should maybe rethink it. Friends to lovers, superior to enemies to lover. Now, how does it feel to be so controversial and and brave? I don't know. I mean, friends to lovers should be executed very well, because for me, I don't like neither friends to lovers or enemies to lovers, because sometimes enemies to lovers turn out to be more like bullying. For example, friends to lovers in Shadow and Bone, I didn't like that, because it was like Mal didn't really realize that Alina was a girl and he was like, it's not like that, it's like he knew that she was a girl, but she was his safe choice, you know. And when she was getting all this attention, he wanted to, like, I know her first. He was gatekeeping Alina, plain and simple. But for example, in the Harry Potter books, like for Ron and Hermione, that was nice. I really loved seeing their friendship evolving into a relationship. But personally, I prefer I'm not a big romance reader. I don't read like a lot of books if they have like the romance as the main focus of the plot. But I can't really make my mind. It depends on the book. Breaking the Spine is not that dramatic. I agree. I totally agree because I really like used books. When I get a book, I really want to leave a trace in it. I don't like go around ripping the pages off. I don't do that because I'm not a crazy person. But if I'm reading a book, especially paperbacks and in small sizes, because my collection for A Song of Ice and Fire is also in pocket size, and most of the books, and especially the last book, Dance of Dragons, is totally wrecked. The front page, like the cover, is kind of bent, the spine is broken, there's like some me taking notes on the side, and I like that. I like having the trace in books, and I have like some old copies that I found in thrift shops that I have like markings and broken spine and broken covers. It's like taking a screenshot. It's like when you get a book and you like break a spine a little bit or just have like a bent page or something, like that book took a screenshot of you when you were reading that book. But it's not that dramatic though. I do it all the time, unless it's a hardback, and I know I fucked up if I break a spine for a hardback because those are unbreakable, and if I do that, I should be punished for it. I think ACOTAR series is vomiting emoji. I totally agree. I'm currently reading the second book and I totally agree. I think the first book was fine. It was following the Beauty and the Beast retelling of the fairy tale retelling, but the second book was like took another turn. It was a huge chunk of nothing. I couldn't care less about the inner circle. By the way, my neighbors are doing some renovation, and I'm so sorry if you hear some drilling because I didn't find any time so I can film. I was waiting till it's too dark so I can film something. I didn't like how Reese was glorified into this feminist king when he was basically the same as Tamlin, because Tamlin, spoiler alert if you are reading the first book, Tamlin turned out to be a huge ass. Not a huge ass, but he was dealing with his PTSD in a very wrong way. Like, I think this book should have been shorter if all the men in this book went to therapy. Also, one of the things that Fire made Fire like going from Tamlin to Reese was that Reese always gave her a choice. Fire was, most of the time she was like in a corner and they throw things at her and they were like, okay, we're giving you a choice, but if you choose the other thing that we don't want to, you're gonna sound like a coward. And they don't say it literally, but they implies that this is the thing. And also Reese was manipulative. He, for example, used her as a bait for the ACOTAR. I don't know how to pronounce that. He was keeping things from her. I have made a video about the first book if you want to watch that, and I'm totally gonna make another video for the second and the third book because I have to commit to something. I have commitment issues, so I want to prove myself that I can commit to something even though it's awful. I don't care about the plot. If you write it in a good way, I'm a simp for that book. I get that. I really get that, because there's a lot of books that I have read, for example, The Invisible Life of Adeluru, when we don't have like a very important plot. It's a character-driven book, and I enjoyed it because the writing was very, very, very good. Like, you cannot stop reading it. And for me, it's like the writing style, the characters, and then the plot. It's mostly about the writing. If the writing is good, like the book, I'm sold. I'm a sim for that book. I'm gonna use that phrase from now on. I'm a sim for that book. Yeah, so thank you so much. I actually didn't find Pride and Prejudice romantic. I'm getting hot thinking about this one. I think what we call romantic is totally subjective and biased, because for me, I don't like that romance that it's shoved in your face, like the romance that it is the main focus of the plot. If the book is mostly about the romance and like the two characters are only there for the purpose of them falling for each other, I'm not gonna enjoy that book. But for Pride and Prejudice, it has so many layers. It's a critique of a society, of the society that was there during Victorian age. It was also about like overcoming a prejudice. All of the characters are flawed, and like it was kind of romantic, but in a very subtle way. So I respect your opinion, but for me, Pride and Prejudice will be like the OG enemies to lover like book. Even though I said that I don't like enemies to lover, but that book really hit the spot for me. Six of Crows isn't actually that good. Crooked Kingdom is way better. You know what? I'm gonna take this off because I'm getting hotter. Okay, we said Six of Crows is actually that good. Crooked Kingdom is way better, and you added "I love you so much" between parentheses. You actually sent me that answer 3 times, and I don't understand. I don't understand what you are implying, because in my previous video I said that if you don't like Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, the duology After Chateau and Boom by Labor to Go, we cannot be friends. And but my love for you, for that person who has sent me this, like overcome my love for this series, so I can tolerate that. But yeah, I can see where this came from, because when we were reading it, we were discussing it actually, and Six of Crows is kind of slow and just putting the basis of the story. And Crooked Kingdom is when the action actually happens. Like you get familiar to the characters, you are more emotionally attached to the characters, you want them to survive, you are more invested into the plot. Like we have a lot of things that went wrong in the first book, and the second book you are just like hoping for things to pick up and to be better and for our characters to survive it. But for me, the Six of Crows is the kind of books that I really like reading, because we know how fantasy books can really be dense, especially if it is introducing a new set of characters. And for this book we have like 6 new characters who has to be introduced in another like continent, in another social construction, like so much different from Fjerda and Ravka and all of that thing that happened in the first trilogy. So for Six of Crows to introduce all these 6 characters, and for each character to have their own spot and to have a moment for them to shine, having their own plot and their own moment to show what they are and their backstories and what they are planning to do, and the relationship with the other 5 characters, it was constructed very well. The writing was amazing, and I'm gonna say that our friendship are not gonna change even though you throw that bombshell at me. So good for you. After is so fucking overrated. True, yeah, true, I guess. You have to know that After was like fanfiction published in Wattpad. It was a One Direction fanfiction, and I still am a One Direction fan. I mean, it was my first love. It was the boy band that made me love music, I guess. And I've read that fanfiction, and over Wattpad, I remember I was 16, 15, and it really rekindled my love for reading for me, because after finishing After, I remember I was like devouring stories on Wattpad so fast. I was like begging my parents to get me books, and I was really into reading after finishing After. So I always say that After is the reason why I am reading, basically, I guess. I revisited the fanfiction and I realized it was toxic. Who would let me, like, as 15 years old, read that smut, if you call it smut, I guess. But for me back then, that was smut. That was like the hardcore stuff that I get into, and I've read 50 Shades of Grey, and I still believe that After has some heavy stuff. I think the producers or the directors of the franchise who are trying to make it into a series of movies should understand that we don't care. Yeah, I guess there's an audience for that, but I don't want like underage girl to see that kind of relationship on TV and think it is as healthy as it gets, because their relationship was toxic. Yeah, it was pretty toxic. And last one is, I didn't get the hype over the book Thief. I found it boring. I'm gonna assume that you have watched the movie first and then read the book, because that was the case for me. I have watched the movie, and after it finished I saw that it was like based on the book Thief by and I was like, oh, there's a book for that, and I read it, and I was like finding it hard to pinpoint the point when the book is one thing and the film is another thing, because I always get them mixed. And especially after you watch the movie and you start reading about the character, and in your head they are always their set characters, but the book is kind of different. I mean, obviously it's so different. It gets boring, especially because it was like told in a very different way than the movie. In the book we have Death, who is narrating the book, but in the movie we are following like a normal family and normal people, and we're having this aerial view of these characters and these different characters, and we don't know their like inner emotional, I guess, except for the little girl. So I'm gonna assume that's the thing, that like that's what happens. It is a great book, and also the way it is written is very clever, I guess. So I'm gonna assume that's the case with you, that you have watched the movie then read the book. That's all. I tried to make it brief. I didn't want to include everything. Thank you so much for sending these my way. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your unpopular opinion about books if you agree with some of that we were discussing here. All the link to my social media are in the description box. Take care good of yourself, and I will see you next time. Bye.